and especially in men, you guys have the luxury of getting a little bit less of the downsides from skipping breakfast that women
Yeah.
do face. But across the board in both men and women, it is generally recommended that you still consume breakfast. And if you're going to try and reach those intermittent fasting windows, to actually bring up your dinner time, because our bodies follow
Mm,
a circadian rhythm,
Right.
meaning
right.
it follows like kind of the movement of the sun and the way that the clock goes, just like for anything else. Our cells all have their own clock. And the way that our cells that help manage blood sugar work is that they work really well in the beginning of the day, but they don't really work very well at the end of the day. And that's
Mhm.
so if you're eating food at the end of the day, like closer to bedtime, your body really isn't going to be able to process it and manage it as well as it could in the beginning of the day. So if
Mhm.
you do want to do daily intermittent fasting where you're, shortening your eating window to maybe anywhere between 12, 8 hours or so, it's
Mhm.
better to have breakfast and bring up your dinner. But a lot of people find that way harder. And so
Yeah.
they just do it the alternative way.
Solution. What if you do both? You bring it just even closer. It's like
You can
snap
if
it
you want to. Is
in
that
the
the
afternoon.
solution? That's up
I
to
don't
you.
know. I'm just like you said, both are good, both work. Maybe just do both, right?
You could, okay, so it's an interesting concept. Um, in that, yes, you can.
Hmm.
But what we also have to remember is that when we shorten our eating window, what we're also doing is we're creating a little bit of stress in the body.
Hmm.
Now, when we give our body that stress, it
Yeah.
is beneficial as long as it's not happening all of the time, because
Yeah.
then it becomes chronically stressed. So if you were to increase the window in which you are fasting and therefore shorten the window in which you are eating more dramatically on both ends, you would probably eat less calories in total. And what you would also do is you would spend more time in what we call a ketogenic state,
Hmm.
meaning your body is
Okay.
going to be using fat as energy. And that is really good for weight loss. So, if I have patients that are really looking to reduce their fat mass and looking to lose weight, specifically, especially belly fat and even visceral fat, I
Yeah.
will potentially look at increasing their fasting window on an intermittent fasting level.
Hmm.
But I wouldn't recommend this for any healthy individual, because then you're just causing all of this additional stress when you don't need the fat loss, and it's not really necessarily going to be as advantageous
Okay.
and
And so
potentially
now
detrimental.
we're going into ketosis, which is a new system, and we've
Mhm.
also mentioned your patients, which maybe you wouldn't recommend this to all of them. How does an individual know like which system works for them? What is suitable for their body? What is suitable? I mean, obviously, also gender plays a role as well. Like, what's different diets for men and women? How do you make a
Yes.
difference? How do you understand which
So
one?
importantly, the best thing to do is to work with a professional that has a degree in nutrition science.
Yeah.
That is, at the end of the day, the
Hmm.
easiest and best way to do it, because then you will get the personalized recommendations. Now, I think in the world today, we are really finally starting to recognize the importance of personalization. That's why we have all these cool wearables and all of
Hmm.
these things that help
Right.
us
Right.
better understand what is going on. But we are really still only scratching the surface. The amount of personalization from individual to individual is vast. The difference in not only our gender, sure, yes, that's one big difference that will call out maybe some of the hormonal differences between us. Um,
Hmm.
of course, some of the needs in terms of total quantity, volume, calories, all of those things, sure, are also going to be different based off of our muscle mass density, and that also can differ between men and women more dramatically. But those things, yes, will play a part in personalizing. But let's also not forget the differences between all of us in our microbiome composition, in
Mm-hmm.
our muscle versus fat versus all other body composition that would play a part in personalization. Not to mention just your environment. So I make changes and recommendations based off of how much somebody travels
Mm-hmm.
versus how sedentary they are versus how how much exercise can they realistically fit in? What type of exercises are they fitting in? All of these things play into the personalization of a protocol, and
Mm-hmm.
that's why I don't recommend that people do this alone. Just to understand a person and make a starting point recommendation, a dietitian needs usually at least an hour of time to understand what you're doing, who you are, look at your labs. Ideally, you've already done all of this in advance. And then from there, usually we need several months to run more tests, to
Mm-hmm.
test things out, see what works. And so if you want to be your own guinea pig, if you're like, Renee, I appreciate that, but I want to do it all by myself, fine.
Yeah.
You can do that. But what you need to do is really give yourself small changes where you can assess the before and after. You typically are going to need to give yourself at least 30 days with any given intervention that you're
Mm-hmm.
trying to
Yeah.
see if it's making a difference. And you want to do pre and post tests. So whatever your goal is. So let's say the world is big on supplements these days, right? So
Right.
let's
Right.
say you want to add in creatine to your protocol. Okay, cool.
Okay.
Great. Now, typically people are pairing that with a weight bearing exercise routine.
Mm-hmm.
So first, do your weight bearing exercise routine for a month, see how much you improve from the beginning of the month to the end of the month. Then on the next month, you're going to add in creatine. Ideally, that's the only thing that you're going to add. You're not also adding in aminos, and you're not also adding in a protein powder, and you're not also adding in all this other stuff, because you won't really know if it's the creatine that's helping you or the protein or whatever. And now you're spending, 3x on your stack that really maybe only one or two of those things worked.
Yes.
And
Mm-hmm.
so you have to be patient. Like in the grand scheme of your life, 1 month of precision is going to be worth it for you to know if this works for you or not.